I'm Adam, and the following is a summary of my very first adventure. If you'd like to read the full story, you can check out the novel Adam Exitus, or if you prefer comic books, read Adam X Issue 1. My promising career as a police officer was abruptly ended when I found myself transported to a jungle without any memory of how I got there. To make matters worse, I had an X tattooed on my forehead and was stripped of my possessions. While struggling to survive in the jungle, I met a woman named Anne. And she had a circular mark on her forehead in the same place as my tattoo. Believing that we were brought there by someone with a twisted sense of humor, we set out to find a way out of the jungle together. Our journey led us to a cliff with no apparent escape route, and we returned to our lagoon, realizing we were trapped. Suspicious of Anne's motives, I decided to follow her one day while she went hunting, and ended up being attacked by a velociraptor. She intervened just in time to save my life, and finally revealed the truth. She was an android whose sole purpose was to ensure my survival. Moreover, we were in an artificial habitat 10,000 light-years away from Earth, and would need to pass through several more enclosures to leave the ship. Initially, I found this hard to believe, but after she opened a portal to the next habitat, I had no choice but to accept the reality of our situation. We found ourselves on a barren asteroid inhabited by blind alien cows, and my android companion informed me that we needed to pass through many more enclosures to reach the exit. Unfortunately, she needed to charge for 10 hours before she could open the next portal, so I used this time to rest. Upon arriving in the next enclosure, I was met with a freezing tundra. She didn't seem bothered by the temperature, but I struggled to keep warm. As we searched for shelter, she revealed that the alien ship was designed to preserve life from all corners of the galaxy. However, our conversation was interrupted when we were attacked by a Kraken, an amphibious warrior race. She fought back and saved me, eventually providing me with the aliens' clothing for warmth. Moving on from the icy terrain, we entered a forest with blue trees and an emerald sky. In the habitat called Argonon, we encountered a horse-like creature which she killed and cooked for us to eat. Curious about her need for sustenance, she explained that she needed to consume organic matter to repair her synthetic flesh, which had been damaged during the Kraken attack. As I marveled at Anne's complexity, I couldn't help but wonder about the beings who created her and kept me captive. After a nightmare, I asked her about her creators and why they had abducted me. She said they were called preservers and explained that they wished to capture one of every life form in the galaxy. I was merely the human they needed for their collection. Determined not to be taken again, I received assurance from her that she would do everything in her power to prevent that from happening. The next enclosure we encountered was a white void, and we passed the time by playing games. In my haste to escape the empty habitat, I rushed through the next portal and found myself falling into a vast ocean. My companion and I managed to stay afloat for a while, but were eventually dragged underwater by a massive coral monster. Despite being swallowed whole, we were able to survive inside the creature's stomach until Anne's pulse emitter recharged. Eventually, we arrived at the ship's core, where my android companion planned to obtain equipment and supplies to aid in our escape. The core consisted of circular corridors with transparent tubes containing frozen life forms. She asked me to wait in cryogenics while she retrieved what we needed, but I couldn't resist the urge to explore. It was during my exploration that I stumbled upon a cryotube containing a naked human who looked exactly like me. Anne returned and explained that the person in the cryotube was the original Adam and that I was his clone. Apparently, the preservers kept the original specimens in this area and used clones to populate their habitats. She also revealed that the X on my forehead indicated that I was the 10th clone in the Adam line. This information was a lot to take in, and before I could process it all, she injected me with a needle, and I fell into a deep slumber. After a series of feverish dreams, I found myself back in the Argonon habitat. I demanded answers from the android about the injection she gave me, and she revealed that they were nanites designed to repair the radiation damage from our travels. Additionally, she provided me with new clothes, a universal translator, and a plasma pistol for protection. Upon learning that I was a clone with false memories, I attempted to end my life with the weapon. However, she had given me an empty power pack as a precaution. She then shared the history of the previous clones, including their suicides and one presumed dead after being attacked by a wild animal. Determined to break the cycle, I decided to escape captivity despite my origins. She agreed to help me and even replaced the depleted power pack in my gun. When we returned to the Craze enclosure for the second time, we were prepared for the inevitable creaking clone that would have replaced the first. With my translation device activated, we attempted to reason with it, but it refused to cooperate. We set a trap, stunning the Creakin. Anne spoke to it in its native tongue, and he revealed his name was Xanatos. He offered to serve me as custom dictated on his home world, and Anne accepted on my behalf to avoid further conflict. Despite our initial encounter, Xanatos invited us to dine with him in his underground chamber, where we ate raw fish and shared stories. However, my knowledge that Xanatos was a clone with implanted memories left me feeling sad. My android companion recounted the legend of Adam X to Xanatos, and these exaggerated tales left him believing that I could lead us to freedom. I was left unsure of my own plans after escaping, wondering if I wanted to start a new life or assume the original Adam's identity. Nonetheless, I knew one thing for certain: I wanted to get away from the Preservers and their ship. After a month, we returned to the Earth habitat, and I was surprised to find that I missed it. Xanatos, who had come with us, was amazed by the environment and suggested we go hunting. But I declined, feeling exhausted. He then asked if Anne was my partner and if she was considered attractive by human standards. I revealed that she was an android, which piqued Xanatos' interest, and he examined her closely. Suddenly, his behavior changed, and he grabbed my pistol, shooting my friend. When I took back the weapon, Xanatos begged me to keep shooting. And that's when I saw a small white mass slither out of Anne's back and into the jungle. Xanatos explained that it was the Hunger, the most dangerous life form in the galaxy, capable of consuming entire worlds. Anne suggested that the Hunger must have been contained in the empty habitat we passed earlier, unable to feed and attacking only prey of equal or lesser size. I realized we were lucky that Xanatos had noticed the Hunger inside Anne, and we resolved to find a way to deal with it. That night, I had a strange dream where I kissed my android companion and woke up wondering if I had feelings for her. After getting dressed, I joined my friends who had caught a fish for breakfast. And while we ate, we discussed our next destination. We would be traveling to a place too hot for Xanatos to survive, and Anne suggested leaving him in the Earth enclosure and opening a portal for him later. Xanatos agreed to stay behind, and she gave him her pistol to protect himself from the Hunger. Before leaving, I promised my new friend we would send for him as soon as possible. The next habitat was covered with volcanoes and magma pools. Soon after we arrived, a Kalic drone attacked us, and during the struggle, my android friend was impaled and thrown into one of these pools. In a fit of rage, I defeated the drone but was overjoyed when Anne emerged from the lava seemingly unharmed. The next enclosure was Flora 1, where we encountered a crying woman who we identified as a Floren. Florens were a race created by Paracas slavers to mine pollen as part of their illicit drug trade. We decided to take her with us, but were immediately attacked by a dragon. After an arduous pursuit through dense undergrowth, Anne finally accumulated enough energy to activate the next portal. We dashed through the interdimensional doorway, and upon realizing that the dragon was hot on our heels, we quickly disabled the portal, cutting off our pursuer's head in the process. We emerged in a desolate wasteland called Budokai, where the scorching red sun beat down relentlessly. The dragon's decapitated head was the only refuge from the scorching heat, and we spent most of our time there dozing beside it. The next portal led to the outer ring of the ship, where the escape pods were located. Anne needed 10 more hours to charge her pulse emitter and secure Xanatos, and suggested that the Floren and I should leave without them. However, I refused to abandon her and opted to wait until we could all escape together. This decision proved to be a fatal mistake, as it gave the Preservers ample time to track us down and recapture us. Before I knew it, the powerful aliens had probed my mind and were deliberating on what to do with us. One of them found my affection for the android repulsive and believed that I was mentally unfit, while another expressed sympathy towards us. Unfortunately, the eldest of the group deemed me dangerous and unpredictable and decided to send me back to the Earth habitat without delay. As luck would have it, when they opened the portal to the Earth habitat, a much larger hunger emerged and immediately devoured the eldest preserver. This caused chaos and broke their telekinetic hold over us, allowing us to launch our escape pods. From within my transparent sphere, I watched as Earth slowly came into view. As we entered the atmosphere, the air around us began to glow red-hot. Eventually, my pod safely landed on a beach where I was reunited with my companions. While relieved to be back home, the thought of Xanatos, who we had to leave behind, filled me with guilt. Anne informed me that he was most likely dead due to the size of the hunger when it appeared, but this did little to ease my conscience. We searched our surroundings for signs of civilization, but couldn't seem to find any. That evening, my android friend scanned the positioning of the stars and deduced that we had landed 6,000 years in Earth's past. Fortunately, she was confident with some minor modifications to her pulse emitter, she could get us back to the future. However, before she could begin her work, a message from the preserver ship arrived. It was a hologram from Xanatos, but our joy at seeing him alive was short-lived. He warned us the hunger was heading for Earth and provided us with landing coordinates and instructions on how to eradicate the organism once and for all. Anne informed us that she would have to travel at top speed to reach the landing zone in time, and she would have to self-destruct to obliterate the threat once and for all. I objected to her sacrificing herself, but she was resolute in her decision. She knocked me unconscious and sprinted off to save humanity. Upon awakening to a swollen eye, I immediately recalled our argument and attempted to pursue her. But a distant explosion revealed that I was already too late. Overwhelmed by the loss, I fell to my knees, crying in anguish while the Floran woman did her best to comfort me. I briefly considered ending my life, but the android had sacrificed everything to save me and I just couldn't do that to her. Instead, I would remain in this time period and build a life for myself as best I could. As the sun rose on the horizon, the Floran woman, who had remained silent until now, spoke her first words and introduced herself as Eve. That brings us to the end of my first adventure. I hope you enjoyed this summary, and if you'd like to know what happened next, you can check out the novel Adam Exiled or read the second issue of the Adam X comic. Bye for now.